I am hoping Anne will stay friends with Sasha and Marcy after the end of Amphibia, but I will admit I have my doubts about whether that will happen, which is a strange thing to say because I shouldn't really have doubts. The show has repeatedly stressed how important this friendship is to the trio. Despite all the tensions and conflicts in that friendship, they still care about each other deeply. They're still willing to sacrifice for each other. The friendship is worth fighting for. The show has emphasized that quite a lot. Considering how much the friendship means to these three, ending the show with that friendship severed would be a dark ending, and considering how optimistic, even to the point of being twee, the show can be, ending on such a sour note would be rather dissonant. So I shouldn't be anxious about the show ending with their friendship weakened or completely dissolved, or at least with them not seeing each other nearly as often. But I am a little anxious. And a big reason why is because of the episode titles that have just been revealed. The Russian cable provider for Amphibia recently dropped episode titles for the rest of Season 3B. And while it might be wise to not trust every little piece of information that comes out of Russia these days, I do think that there is reason to believe that these titles are accurate. And if they are accurate, they could very much shape how we think about the show as it progresses through its last set of episodes. We have no confirmation that these titles are legitimate, but there is reason to believe that they are. One of the titles we've gotten from this episode listing is Sasha's Angels, and another is Ulm Town Road. Two titles that we have gotten from other sources as leaks. So, if those are real titles, as I believe they are, since we've gotten them from multiple sources and multiple different junctures at this point, I think there is reason enough to trust these other titles as well. Some of them, like Newts in Tights, carry that very idiosyncratic Amphibia sense of humor that the show is known for. I do not think someone who is not a part of the writing team would come up with a title like that. So I think believing that a title like that is legitimate is reasonable, and if some of the titles are legitimate, as I feel very strongly that they are, then there is reason to believe that the others are legitimate as well. Still, I should give you a little caveat emptor, buyer beware. This is all speculative, and if these titles do not end up to be true, don't say I didn't warn you. But I must make judgments based on the information I have, and based on the information as it presents itself to us at this juncture, I believe these titles are legitimate. Particularly interesting are the titles of the last 3 weeks of the show that the cable listings provide. Episode 16, 17, and 18. Episode 16 is divided into 2 segments, both fittingly portentous. One of these is the 3 armies, and the other is the beginning of the end. Episode 17, the penultimate episode we get here, is called All In, a fitting title for what appears to be a final battle episode. And the last episode we get, episode 18, is The Hardest Thing, which I think is the most interesting title we get, and is very portentous. Whether it's a good portent or not, I will delve into throughout the rest of this video. It could either mean that the three of them are going to struggle to patch up their friendship and reaffirm the connection between the three of them, or it could mean that they are going to part ways and have to say farewell, at least for now. But before we get into that, some of the more astute viewers among you might say that, hey, why is there no episode 19 or 20? Isn't this show supposed to be 20 episodes in its third season? And that is a good point. There are a few options for why we don't have 20 episodes, why we only have 18. One option could be that there are indeed 2 more episodes, but they're simply not listed on the Russian cable listings. But I think the more likely answer, considering how conclusive these episode titles sound, is that the last 2 are going to be double-length 40-minute episodes, just like Gravity Falls did with its series finale. That would give us 20 episodes, or 20 half-hour-long segments. It's just that some of them would be combined into singular episodes. But with that out of the way, let's talk more about some of these episode titles. Do they necessarily mean that Anne, Sasha, and Marcy will not stay together as friends long term? Well, no. 16 and 17 sound very generic Final Battle-y, though at least they did not go the Euphoria route and title every episode with this grandiose, magniloquent reference to some famous poem that the show neither has the thematic ambition nor the artistic nuance and texture and ambiguity to really justify. But episode 18 is different. The hardest thing. What, in fact, is the hardest thing? It seems to signify a rather poignant, almost melancholy ending. That might perhaps be a misreading, but I do not think that the hardest thing means, oh, it's so hard to get rid of this giant leviathan of pure evil that's seeking to use his nuclear weapons to rule the world. I think it's going to be a little more nuanced than that. A little more personal, a little more focused on the dynamics between these 3 girls. Now, there are quite a few references to what could be the hardest thing, and perhaps like in True Colors, it does not have one singular meaning. Perhaps one of the hardest things could be Anne having to say farewell to the planters? Perhaps there could be a very hard thing with Marcy having to depart from the Corps and perhaps losing part of herself in the process. But I do believe that some element of this hardest thing title will refer to the bond between the 3 of them and their efforts to patch that bond back together. The hardest thing could mean it's the hardest thing for 3 people who've grown apart as young teenagers with their different interests and their different identities and self-perceptions to stay and maintain the friendship they've nurtured since they were kids, especially considering how disrupted that friendship has become by all their differing desires and how those desires have led them to hide things from each other. It could mean that friendship could survive the blows it's suffered, and that the 3 of them could realize that they're not going to be simple, sweet little saccharine friends like they were when they were kids, and they will have to actually be more mature and adult about their friendship and try and make it stronger by being honest with each other, by not hiding the darkness, but sharing it with each other and being forthright. But that this process is worth rebuilding their friendship. Or it could mean that after what they've gone through, they can't rebuild that friendship, or at least they can't make it as strong as it once was, and so they have to say farewell. That could be the hardest thing, having to say goodbye to each other even when they care about each other so deeply. It's worth noting that even had they not found the box, their friendship still would have been transformed. You can still be friends when you're teenagers instead of little kids, of course. But the friendship has to change, especially when the three people are growing apart in a lot of ways, and they have their own directions in life, and they've really developed into their own people with their own interior lives and their own personal ideals in a way that they really didn't when they were kids. Sasha was always going to lose some semblance of closeness to Anne as Anne rebelled against what she saw as Sasha's controlling friendship style. And Sasha was going to have to figure out what she herself wanted in life. Marcy might not have run away to a fantasy world had they not discovered the box, but she would have taken a drastic action considering how unlivable she found her circumstances on Earth. How difficult will it be for them to still be friends going forward? Maybe they repair their relationship only to then depart. Maybe they fix up the house and then sell it. But I hope not. I hope that they are still able to maintain that solid, robust, tender friendship that they've always had, and readjust that friendship for the more mature and thoughtful and complicated people that they've become as they've matured. We can at least hope. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this before anyone else can. Tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon, I promise you that. What do y'all think is going to happen in the last few episodes of Amphibia? Do you think these leaks are legit? And whether they are or not, do you think the three of them are going to stay friends going forward after the end of the show? Sound off in the comments. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Adios, comrades.